Hey guys, this is Brian from Cross Coast Gaming with another beginner Java tutorial. Today we're going to be making Tic Tac Toe. So I'll give you a little demo of what we're going to be making. It's a text-based Tic Tac Toe in the console. So it says, please enter a row and a column. So we'll go in the top left, 1, 1, and then it should switch to O, and we'll say O goes in the middle, which is 2, 2. And then we'll make X one at the top, so that's row 1, column 2. And then O will just go wherever, and then we'll win at the top, row 1, column 3, game over, player X wins. So this is what we're going to be making right now. I just wrote it real quick just to make sure it all works. So let me undo all of this. And there we go. We're going to start with a brand new, fresh class. And what we're going to do first is we're going to declare our variables. So we're going to need a public static int for the row and the column that we want to move in. We're going to need a scanner to take the input for our players. Scan. We're going to set it to a new scanner that takes system.in for the input and import that. We are going to need our actual board, which is a double character array. And by the way, I put out a tutorial between this one and episode 2 called 2.5, which goes over a lot of the things we're going to be doing in this tutorial, like double character arrays and nested for loops. So if you haven't seen that or you're not familiar with those concepts, you should definitely check it out. So a double character array, and we can call it board. And it's a new 3x3 for our game board. And the turn. So whose player, or what player's turn it is. So we'll start with X. You can start with O if you want. And then we need our methods. Oops. And one thing we're going to cover in this tutorial that we haven't before is actually making custom methods. So everything so far has just been inside the main method right here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make different methods to kind of like divide up the workload. So the whole point of a method is that you can write a bunch of code in it, and then you can call that method over and over, and it'll execute all the code within that method. So you don't need to keep rewriting the same thing over and over again. In our case, it's just going to be easier for organization. So we're going to make a public static void play, public static void print board, and public boolean game over. And this is going to take the last move we did. So inside this parentheses, we're going to write int r move and int c move for the row move and the column move. And it's going to give you an error because we need to return something. So by default, we'll say return false, the game's not over. So the way these work is it needs to be public static in order for it to be accessed by our main method because it's a static method. And then void means that it has no return type. So everything we run in here, when we call play, like when we call the play method, it's just going to run all the code within that. We can just call that and it'll do whatever is written between these two brackets. So that's what void is. And then if you want to set to something else, like a boolean, then that means that it does have a return type. So you see here we return false because we haven't written the code in here yet. Alright, so what we're going to do now that we made our methods is we're going to start writing some of the code inside these. So first what we need to do at the top here is make a for loop inside of our main method. I equals 0, I is less than 3, I plus plus, and we're going to make another for loop inside of that. J equals 0, j less than 3, j plus plus, and this should all look familiar from the last tutorial. And we're going to set the board, which is our double character array up here, at spot I, j equal to an underscore. And remember, this is a character array, not a string array, so you need to use the single quotes and not the double quotes. Why is this not working? Oh, I didn't put static up here. There we go. So this is just going to go through our array and make everything, all 9 spots in the board, as you can see down here, equal to underscores like this, until we replace it with a X or an O. And then let's call print board just to see if that works. And let's write that method. And this is another nested for loop to go through all of our values in our board. Less than 3, I++. And we are going to just print the board value at I, J, and to get those cool little dividers in the bottom, we're going to say plus, put a little divider there with spaces around it. And then if you remember from last time, to go to the next line, inside the I for loop, we're going to print the line so that it returns to the next line. Oops. Alright, let's see if that works. Alright, cool. Looking good. We're missing the dividers on the left. And the reason that is because we only want to print them the first time when j is equal to 0, because it's the first line, or the first value for each row. So the way we do that is inside the j for loop, we're going to say if j equals 0, system.out.print divider and a space. Let's see if that works. There we go. Alright, so we got our game board. Easy stuff. And you see, we can just minimize this this thing right here. Let's add one more thing. Let's make it enter after we print the board. So outside of our for loops, print line. And so this is the magic of methods, is that we can just minimize this right here. And we don't need to worry about writing anything to print the board ever again. Whenever we want to show the board on the screen, we just have to call print board. And it will execute all the code within here. So our print board method's done. So now let's get rid of this because we know it works. And let's do play. And our play is going to be where all of our actual game logic comes in. So first we're going to want to know if the game's over. So we're going to say boolean playing equals true. And then we're going to make our while loop. We're going to say while playing, which is the same as saying while playing is equal to true. And we're going to have all of our code in here. And so we're going to want to set our row equal to our scanner's next int, so the next thing the player types. And we're also going to want to set it to -1. And the reason we do that is it would work otherwise, but the player would have to type 0 for this spot, 1 for this spot, and 2 for this spot. And it just seems more intuitive for them to go 1, 2, 3. Because remember, arrays start at value 0, not value 1. So we're going to allow people to type in 1, 2, or 3, and it'll actually set it in the computer to 0, 1, or 2. So it's just a preference. Column equals scan.nextInt -1. And then we're going to set the board value at row column equal to turn. Remember, turn is the character that we set up here. So by default, it starts at X at the beginning of the game. So at the bottom of our while loop, we're going to say if turn equals X, then set it equal to O, else set it equal to X. And so this way, it's just every time we go through it, it switches to the other player. So after we ask them to do all that and we set their turn to the board, after we're done playing for that round, we're going to say, all right, if the last person to go was X, then we're going to set it to O this time. Otherwise, set it to X, which means that if it was O, it'd be X now. All right, now in here, let's see, what should we do next? Yeah, let's make our game over method. So the game over method is to just decide if someone's won the game. And it's kind of confusing. I mean, I just wrote it before making this video. You guys can go ahead and copy that down. If you need to pause the video, then do that and just copy that down exactly as it is. You don't need the comments necessarily. I just made it organized a little bit. But pretty much it just makes sure that you can kind of see, if you read it carefully, what it does. It should seem pretty straightforward. We send it the move that we just did in the row and the column, and then we say, all right, within that column, if the first value is equal to the second value and the first value is equal to the third value, we're pretty much saying if all three of these are the same, then the game's over. So we're going to return true. And then we're going to say up and down, if like all three of these are the same, return true. And then diagonal, return true. And if none of that's true, if like none of those conditions are met, then we're just going to return false here at the bottom. All right, so copy that down, and then let's go back into our play method. And we're going to say if game over, and we're going to pass it the row and column. Why doesn't this work? Oh, public static boolean, game over, on line 48. By the way, line numbers are going to be helpful, especially when we get into bigger programs. So we're going to go to Window, Preferences, and let's see, I think it's in General, Editors, Text Editors, Show Line Numbers. I have no idea why it's not on by default, but go ahead and turn that on and click Apply, and then OK. And that should show the line numbers on the side. Alright, so public static boolean, game over, and then within our play method we're going to say if game over, which is pretty much saying if game over returns true based on these conditions. So based on the row move and the column move that we just did, we're going to send it in here, and then we're going to check with those rows and columns that we just used to make our turn go by. If those are true, then we're going to say plain equals false, which is the Boolean value we set right before our while loop. So that'll make the while loop stop going after this. It won't, keep wanting to play. And we'll say, we'll print the board one more time. Actually, you know what? No, because we're going to print the board right down here, outside of that. We will say system.out.println game over player plus turn, so whoever's turn it was wins. I feel like I'm missing something, but let's try running this. Oh yeah, just the text I'm missing, so we'll just say 1-1. Game over, player X wins. Awesome. So now all we need to do is just add the instructions for the player. So we'll say, please enter a row and column. So that should, and you know what, we should print the board once before we start playing so people can see what they're looking at for turn one. And this is all preference. I mean, by now the game works, is over. I'm just kind of printing it up. So we'll print the board before our while loop. There we go. That looks nice, doesn't it? Print it, please enter a row and column. So bottom right is 3-3. And let me see if we can win this real quick. Row 1, column 3. Game over, player X wins. Alright, that should be it. I don't think I'm missing anything else. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.